In recent years, we've heard frequent reports and charges about dangers in the food we eat. And it's always an outrage to learn that we've been unknowingly consuming unhealthy food. But can you think of a greater outrage than deficient food for the most vulnerable and dependent of all consumers, babies? If you're a mother or a father, I think you'll be especially affected by this investigative report from Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo?
This is a can of baby formula. Now, this is something all of us take for granted as being safe and nutritious. It's taken for granted because it's such a critical commodity, often an infant's only source of nutrition. But this particular baby formula, it's called Neomalsoy, was out on the shelves and used by about 50,000 infants, even though for 16 months it was manufactured without a crucial ingredient, chloride. Chloride deficiency can lead to a form of starvation, one that can cause stunted growth and brain damage. And if undetected for long enough, it can even cause death. Because of this formula, Neomalsoy, last summer at least 100 parents watched as their babies lay dying, and no one could tell them even what was wrong.
This is Doug Hill in January, back in a Memphis hospital for tests. Last July, Doug was in the same hospital fighting for his life. At first, no one could figure out what was wrong.
They made a little human pincushion out of him. And a child that age, being totally dependent on its parents, looks at you with a very hard-stricken look on his face when you're helping hold him down so they can draw blood and do things. Mama, Daddy, why don't you help me? Why are you hurting me? And it tears your heart out.
Bradley Pilot spent part of last July in a Washington, D.C. hospital, also fighting for his life.
I really thought my baby was dying. I really did. I couldn't understand why none of the doctors could figure out what was wrong with him, why he wouldn't eat. I used to kneel at his bed and I used to pray, oh God, please just let me know what I'm doing wrong. What's wrong with this baby? What can it be?
It was the baby formula her child and 50,000 others were being fed. Dr. Shane Roy of the University of Tennessee Medical School is the man who discovered that the formulas, Neomalsoy and Co-Free, were defective.
I was in Laos and in Cambodia last year, and I saw children who were severely malnourished. The photograph you showed me, this photograph of this little girl, 15 months old, who was on Neomalsoy, it's so reminiscent of that. Is it a form of starvation?
Well, this is one of the more marked examples of an infant who was on Neomalsoy, and it shows the marked malnutrition that that infant had. So we're not talking about just a small drop-off from a growth grid, a decrease in weight. That was something that any layperson can see. It's horrible.
As painful as it is, it's one thing when an infant is suffering from some unavoidable disease, as these children are. It is quite another when their suffering is the result of negligence. But that's exactly what happened to Doug Hill, Bradley Pilot, and hundreds of other children across the country. Syntex, the manufacturer of the soy-based infant formulas, Neomalsoy and Co-Free, committed two incredible errors. First, it changed its basic formula, but afterwards never tested for vital nutrients. Second, the company cut back on its quality controls. Because of this, for 16 months, Syntex produced and sold baby formula that was severely deficient in chloride, a vital nutrient.
This is a unique form of malnutrition, chloride malnutrition. We have seen that they didn't grow properly, that their head circumferences did not grow properly, that they were being deprived of an essential nutriment during a period of rapid brain growth.
To parents of very young children, parents like my wife and me, the most upsetting thing about what happened to Doug Hill and the other children who were on that soy-based formula is that it shook the absolute faith we have that all formula will always be safe and nutritious. Now, Gabriel was both breast and bottle-fed. He's almost 8 months old now. But for mothers who are unable to breastfeed their children, these bottles and the formula they contain are often the sole source of nutrition for their children during a vital time of their lives. But for parents who relied on these two formulas, Neomalsoy and Co-Free, that absolute faith sent some of those babies to the hospital and near death.
Did you ever think that you might lose him?
Yes, we didn't sleep at all.
How did you react when you found out that it was the formula?
I didn't trust anything. And I'm still that way to a large degree.
Scale?
The bitterness felt by the parents is understandable, because the first year of an infant's life is such a critical period, a time of explosive growth and brain development. That's the reason the company's negligence is so unforgivable. We've tried repeatedly over the last few months to get their explanation. We even went to their plant in Elgin, Illinois, and tried to talk to Al Hurd, the director of operations.
Remove the quality controls from baby formula when that's the only nutrient a child consumes in the first 6 months of his life? Did you answer that question?
As you see, he refused to talk to us. More importantly, and this is the third allegation against Syntex, the company also refused to supply vital information to the Food and Drug Administration. Finally, on November 1st, Syntex had to account for its conduct to a subcommittee chaired by Congressman Al Gore.
FDA's asked you for a lot of information, and again, you have refused to give it to them. Why?
Well, I don't think refusal is a proper characterization.
Have you given it to them?
We are in the process of gathering it. We have a meeting with them tomorrow, in fact, in which we're going to be making information available to them.
Well, maybe this hearing has been helpful in that regard, but why, if they requested it in August, did you not give it to them then?
Well, we've had a continuing dialogue with the FDA ever since the last week of July.
Were tests done for chloride? Now, why wouldn't you answer that?
We have made information available.
They say you haven't.
We have made assay data available to them with respect.
They say, were tests done for chloride routinely, and if so, during what dates? On what dates? You have refused to answer that question posed to you by the Food and Drug Administration. Why?
Do you think that Syntex should be prosecuted for the way they've behaved, for criminal negligence?
If they shouldn't, who should? That's...
I work in the plumbing industry. The manufacturers of plumbing products, of plumbing fixtures, were put in jail a few years ago, some of them for price fixing. Water heater manufacturers experienced the same problem, price fixing. They went to jail. Now, if these people have gone to jail for getting into our pockets and costing us a few dollars extra for toilets, sinks, and water heaters, and that's a criminal prosecution, if they can go to jail for it, then I think somebody who has no more concern for our infants' health, for the other babies they've affected, yeah, I think they ought to go to jail. I really do.
This is Michael Petrillo in the arms of his mom. He's another victim of neomulsoid. His parents, Lolly and Bud, here at their home in Glenview, Illinois, also feel that Syntex should be prosecuted criminally. Last month, Michael and his mother were introduced to the program at the Glenbrook School for the Retarded. Michael has not been diagnosed as retarded, but he's been diagnosed as being developmentally delayed.
Here and a bye there, here a bye there, a bye everywhere, a bye. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O.
So he will first come for individual therapy, where he'll be seeing a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, and a speech therapist. And they will do their various evaluations with him and really pinpoint what his strengths and weaknesses are. So that then, once we get to know him, we can do individual therapy as well as group therapy in this setting right here.
When you brought Michael to the school today, I wonder what your reaction was when you saw the other children there.
Seeing the children today did upset me. You know, if it had been something he was born with, you would handle it and probably said, well, that's your luck, and worked with it. But this is something that's developed that there's no reason for, which is what makes you so mad.
Michael, in particular, was on that formula for 8 months. Very few other children took it that long, and it was his sole source of nutrition for that entire period. All those vital months from the time he was 1 to 9 months old, the vital months of growth, were just all retarded. I was looking at him in his crib the other night after he was asleep, and something that I've noticed, that my wife has noticed, that we hadn't really talked about until the past couple of days. Something in his head, in his face, from the forehead to the nose, including the eyes, just doesn't look right. His head is kind of indented above the bridge of the nose. His eyes don't look just right. And this is all since he has started to so-called recover. We have the hope that he will catch up. Right now, he's 7 or 8 months behind in his developmental growth, that he should be. He's 15 months old and he just crawled.
I really am angry. There's no reason for it.
As you've seen, the parents of the affected children are worried and they're upset. How could it happen? How could something as critically important as baby formula be allowed to go wrong? And where was the government when this crisis was developing? One parent summarized the feelings of the entire group when she told me the response by the Food and Drug Administration to this issue ranged from dumb to ineffective. The Food and Drug Administration was also questioned by Congressman Gore. Last August, the FDA had labeled the threat to the children posed by the formulas as life-threatening, with a significant probability of death. Yet 3 months later, the formulas were still being found on the shelves.
Why wasn't it given top priority?
I do not know the answer to that.
Stated another way, FDA never checked a single store until a television reporter called you up and said, we're finding this stuff all over the place.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, but that does not reflect our procedures. In this particular recall, that is correct.
Well, here it is, neomulsoy. It's been reconstituted. As you can see, it's marked new, and it's back on drugstore shelves. Back before any follow-up study on the affected children has even been started. Back, according to some experts, before all the questions about what went wrong in the first place have even been answered.
Under current law, any individual or group of individuals can mix up any kind of concoction they want to and mass market it as the sole source of nourishment for infants in this country, so long as it's labeled correctly. I think that's wrong. I think there ought to be minimum standards, and I think that companies ought to be required to test the formula before it's mass marketed for infants in this country. I've introduced legislation to accomplish that goal.
You're fine.
So where exactly does all this leave the parents and their children? Like the Hill family, it leaves them waiting for answers and for the follow-up studies to begin at the National Institute of Health. But most of all, it leaves them shaken, mistrustful, and worried about the future of their children. Unfortunately, most experts agree that the answer to the question on the minds of all the parents, has there been any permanent damage, will not be known for years.
We've been told he may be 9 or 10 years old before we can tell. If there are learning disabilities, if there are memory problems, or so many areas of the brain that are developing now, we know so little about it, that we don't know exactly what was affected.
If there was anything we could have done, we would have. And it's just, it's a difficult thing. Emotionally, it's still, you know, it really, it gets to us. Again, this fear of the unknown. We just don't know if he's going to be okay.
Effect this trauma had on him and will have on his growth and development in the future, something that will be with us every day of our lives.
You know, they talk about the fact that, you know, the time when the brain grows the most rapidly is from 4 to 6 months. When was he going through this? 4 to 6 months. Can you ever make up the time that you lose when your brain isn't growing? It's an awful thing to live with. It really, really is. But when I look at him, he looks so healthy and so wonderful, and every day I just pray that he's just going to keep going that way. But we don't know.
Charging negligence, almost $100 million worth of lawsuits have already been filed against Syntex by the families of the affected children. There is another allegation against the company. It has nothing at all to do with negligence.
I mean, here's a product that's designed to be used as a sole source of nourishment for infants. It's found to be unsafe and indeed life-threatening for infants here in the United States. You are no longer allowed to sell it here in the United States, and you ask for permission to distribute it overseas, to infants overseas. Is that correct?
It would only be appropriate, Congressman, if it was being used as a supplement to the diet and not as a sole diet.
And you were going to send an English language labeled product overseas, one that had been the source of serious illness among infants here, and rely on its proper use overseas?
We would have to have had assurance that it would be used properly.
Just last week, the House subcommittee that investigated this incident sent its report on Syntex to the Justice Department for possible criminal prosecution. Now, if you're a parent whose child was on either neomulsoy or co-free, remember, the bad formulas were those manufactured between March of '78 and August of 1979. And be careful, because some of that old formula is apparently still out there. Twice this week, cans of the bad stuff have been found on store shelves in Kansas City. If your child was on either formula before it was reconstituted, then we suggest you consult your pediatrician. If after that either you or your doctor still have questions, then the FDA advises you to contact the Center for Disease Control. Their address is Atlanta, Georgia. The zip is 30333. Their telephone number, incidentally, is area code 404-329-3311. 404-329-3311.